Welcome to Nourishing Body and Soul, the podcast. Get ready to revitalize your mind, body, and soul. We're here to inspire women who are looking to break free from old patterns and ideas to create a life of increased confidence and improved health. Say goodbye to limiting beliefs and hello to new possibilities. So kick back, get ready to have some fun, and let's dive in. We'll uncover tools and insights that can help you build a life that's truly nourishing, body and soul. Hi, I'm Tracy.
And I'm Victoria.
And welcome to the podcast today. We have a very fun topic today. But
Yes.
first, I know better than this. And I trust I'm not alone. I hope I'm not alone in this. But there are times when, like recently, I had a cookie and it didn't taste as good as I wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of going, doesn't taste that good, I had another one because I knew that it potentially could be very satisfying. So it's like I kept eating, trying to will it to be better and to be as satisfying as I wanted it to be. When I know better than that, I just need to cut bait,
Let
it go. But
no, I've done
that's
that.
easier. Oh, good, it's not just me.
No, totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we know better than that.
I know better than yes. So I know better than this, but I was out to dinner with somebody last night, and I don't know what was going on through her head. Like she doesn't even. I was going to tell her about the podcast that she needed to listen to it, but I didn't get a chance. She was chatty, and she saw people that were not what she thought was the perfect size. So she started making comments on the size of their bodies, and I was like, I am enlightened to these guys. You know, she was asking me like, are they fat? And I was like, no, these girls are not fat. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about, crazy lady. And so, no offense, if you watch this, you know who you are, and I love you. But anyway, so I defended that. I gave my most enlightened responses on body size and diet culture and whatever. But I was irritated. And I went home and I was irritated. And I know better. The I know better wasn't that I stood up for diet culture, against diet culture. That's not what I know better. The I know better is I shouldn't have been irritated at her. First of all, she is a good 20 years older than I am and has lived in a different culture and it lives with different ideas that, you know, are not even close to being what we no. So the I know better is that I should have been irritated at somebody who's lived the diet culture, or you know what the woman's worth is defined by her body and all of that. So I'm sorry you didn't. I don't know if you even knew I was irritated at you, but if you watch this and just know that I'm not. I realized the error of my ways of being irritated at you through my I know better. So there we go.
Interesting, because I was just talking to my daughter-in-law, and she has started watching the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, old TV, and then good wholesome TV. And she said, "I can't watching this." It's like I cannot believe. I mean, I'm not surprised at all anymore about my mom and her opinions about bodies. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I've watched that show in a long time.
Yeah, I've
watched the Mary Tyler Moore Show. She said, "Oh gosh, no, they talk all the time about diets and body size choice." And Rhoda, the best friend, she's always talking about what diet she's on and how she needs to lose 5 pounds or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'll have to go back and watch those because I haven't watched those in a long time. I thought that doesn't really surprise me. I had forgotten that, but yeah, that's the mention.
I remember Mary Tyler Moore. I guess I don't quite remember Rhoda's body, but like they're thin.
Yeah. Oh,
like super thin.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway.
Yeah. So, but you know what? I bet you anything if we go back to a lot of those shows from the 60s and early 70s, that we'll find out, we'll hear the talk of it. Mm-hmm. And whereas today we see it visually, we don't hear as much to talk about it, but it's just kind of unspoken because it's obvious through who they're casting that this is the look that's acceptable. But so the age makes a difference too.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
Yes.
But it was an interesting experience to have, because we don't do that. We're not, when we go out to dinner, we're not looking around at people and judging their body sizes out of nowhere. Like, it wasn't like I told, well, it doesn't, but yeah, it was a shock to hear to my ears. That's yeah. So like, I always joke about where I'm like at the very beginning of the path. I'm far enough down the path that when I heard it, it was shocking to hear. Like, yes.
That's a yay. That's
It
a
is. Win.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And today's topic is a very fun one. It's one of my favorite things to talk about.
Yay.
With clients and whoever will listen. But it also is one that there's surprising amount of resistance to.
Okay.
But so let me just start by asking, and I haven't asked her this before, so I'm just putting her on the spot. Tell me about one of your favorite meals you've had.
Oh gosh, I know this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I rank those. Like,
Okay.
when I turned 50, I did like 5 for 50, and I ranked my favorite meals, favorite vacations, favorite scuba dives, like I ranked, like, I don't even know how many things I ranked in my life, but I ranked my favorite. I'll tell you my favorite dinner, and then I'll tell you my favorite dessert.
Okay.
Okay, so my favorite dinner, the number one dinner, was I was in France, in the south of France, and they had, and I think it's the 18th of August, they have like Annunciation or something. I don't remember what holiday. It was a holiday. So I was with my friends, and her family worked in distributing meat from the Basque Country to Paris to the fancy restaurants. So that's kind of where I was. So I went down to like a farm in the middle of Basque Country, and we walked in the farm, and there's like all these like animals on spits, but the smell was so good. And I sat down to dinner at 6. And we stopped eating just after midnight, and it was course after course after course. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. I couldn't speak any. I mean, I thought I could speak French. That was the time I went, and I thought, oh, I can speak French. I could not. So I did not even really. I didn't even know what it was I was eating. I'm sure I ate organs. I'm sure I ate all kinds of things that like, if you had told me, I might have gone. It was spectacular. It was spectacular. And then we had this big Basque cake at the end that's kind of like a cheesecake. It was amazing. That was my number one dinner. Ooh, yes.
Okay, your number one dessert.
My number one dessert, there's a place called Fifth Floor, it's gone now, in San Francisco. And my friend and I had gotten gift certificate there for, I don't even know how much it was, for something I did. I got gift certificate there. So my friend and I went, and he loves chocolate. And I heard they had a really good dessert. And we had the dinner, and the dinner was great. But then we had like a chocolate dessert, and it came out like a flight of chocolate desserts. So there was like a mousse and a cake and, a couple other things. There were 4 things I remember. And we both were just like, and we took a bite, and every single bite felt like you were entering heaven. It was like the heavens had opened, and we talked about that. We still could talk about that. Like, well, remember that night we had chocolate desserts? It was pretty good. Yeah. So those are my two biggest, my best and favorite meal, which was hard to come up with. I have like, that's just why I had to do 5. And then like my favorite dessert. Yeah. So there you go.
Okay, so she's super fancy, obviously.
A little bit.
One of my favorite desserts,
You can tell how fancy I am. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
My favorite,
That was
on
my
the
fancy
other end
penis.
of the spectrum, one of
Okay.
my favorite desserts I've ever had was a peach cobbler that was made camping in a Dutch oven.
That's good too, because anything camping is like extra good.
It can be.
Yeah.
Or it's just not.
Oh,
I've had
okay.
many of burnt peach cobbler, other people trying to make it, you know.
So it was a peach cobbler, sorry.
Yeah, and it's a peach cobbler. It was just the right, just the right gooiness, but really what the topping was just the best. It was, it's a dessert I've been chasing ever since, trying to figure out how they did that. The frustrating thing is the person who made it, it wasn't something that she did all the time. It was just a new thing that she tried it. She didn't remember how to make it.
Oh, that's my sister. My sister makes the best food and she never writes it down. She made like, this doesn't even sound like something that sounds like it would be good, but she made like this mushroom soup with all of these super fancy mushrooms with all the like chanterelles on that. She didn't write it down. It was like heaven. And even now, sometimes I'm like, I can't believe you didn't write that down. She's like, I can't believe it either. But then she doesn't write down anything else. She makes really good food. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No,
so she didn't write it down.
Yeah,
so
I've never been able to have it again.
Well, you can practice and try.
I have. Oh, I haven't come up with it. I do. It's not dessert I make all the time, but I've tried a few different things. It's like I'll see a picture. It's like, oh, that looks like the topping that she had, and I'll try that, and it's good, but it's not as good as that was. So. Anyway,
maybe you have to have it outside.
Maybe in a Dutch
outside in your Dutch oven, outside in your multiple like country house country.
Maybe.
So yeah.
So I'm sure that this talk has gotten you thinking about some of your favorite foods.
Please.
And your favorite meals.
Do that. Write it down. Write down like your top 5 favorite. It's a super fun exercise to go through. To go through life in all kinds of parts of your life and go, what was the top 5 experience when if you're like 15, do it anyway. You're probably not listening to this, but if you are, like, yeah, do it anyway. But
do it again periodically.
live so that you will have a top 5 by the time you get 15. Yeah. A worthy top 5.
Oh, another one of my very favorites. It was French fries, actually. Ooh. Surprisingly, because I'm not a big French fry person. Like I can get French fries anywhere, and often I do, but I will literally eat like 2 to 5 of them, and I'm good. But my daughter and I went to Napa. This was a fancy restaurant one. Went to Napa and they had these French fries that were cooked in truffle oil and the salt they used, and I'm not sure what else they
was it Boucheron? Did you go to Boucheron?
We did, but what we had there was really disappointing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, this was Brasswood.
Whoa.
But it was so these French fries are like, oh my gosh, they are far and away the best French fries I've ever had.
That's awesome.
And it was fairly generous plate. And my daughter and I ate every one of those French fries.
So we can make those.
We probably could, but I'm not, like I said, they use a certain kind of salt and they season it with something else. I would have to go back to the restaurant and have them again to examine it instead of just lost in that experience.
I have truffle oil at home.
I just got some.
You did? Oh, fun.
Yeah. Okay. So why are we talking about this?
Because we love talking about food, because food is awesome.
But flipping that coin,
don't flip that coin.
No,
I have not a lot of like glass half full things. I'm a glass half full person. And then, but talking about this food.
But we'll get back to the.
Oh, okay, sorry.
We've got to flip that coin, because for those people that we have where we are just loving what we're eating, how many times have we eaten and felt guilty? How many times have we eaten and not noticed what we were eating? How many times have we been on a diet and just not even, it's like whether we like the food or not was completely irrelevant. We're just eating what we're supposed to on that diet.
Yeah.
And that
all the time.
Yeah. Evelyn Tribole, who is one of the authors of Health at Every Size, she's one of the authors of Intuitive Eating. And in an interview with her, I heard her talking about this woman who she's asked her, so, what's a food that you really like, a food that brings you pleasure? And this woman, very sadly, couldn't come up with anything. It was such a foreign concept to her of having any kind of enjoyment with her food that she had to think on it for a while. And eventually what she came up with was, well, on this one diet that she was on, she was allowed to have a chicken breast on a bed of lettuce, and that was okay.
That was her favorite food.
Yeah. And it wasn't
Maybe
even
it's a really good recipe. Maybe it was like a brilliant recipe of chicken on like a very
that could
wonderful
be,
piece
except
of
for it's
lettuce.
not likely because she didn't go, oh, this chicken that I had.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, maybe this chicken breast on a bed of lettuce. And just some thought that somebody can be eating, and I would venture to say, way too often we've been in that point too. And it's because this food is such a we make food so complicated, and many of us have a list of good foods and bad foods. We've talked a little bit about this.
That's for sure.
But it's like not just this food tastes good, I like it, and this food tastes bad, I don't like it. Not that list, but the cookies are bad because there's too much sugar, there's too many calories, there's too much fat, there's too much this and too much everything in cookie. Cookies are bad foods. Foods that are too processed, those are bad foods. Foods that are, have too much sugar, any kind.
Or yeah. I don't know. Remember when I said way back, a little while back, I said somebody gave me some homemade bread, and I did put honey and honey, and I don't like honey that much. That's not my favorite thing to do. So all of a sudden now I'm like on a honey kick, and I don't even. My mom was like, "What happened to all the bread?" And I would tell her I toasted it all, put tons of butter on it, and then put melted the honey. This is how much we don't use honey. It's crystallized. It's crystallized. I have to put it in the microwave, which I did for too long, and now the bottle is all smooshed and collapsed because I put it in there for too long, but it's still work. And now I'm just eating a bunch of honey biscuits last night. Like I don't even like honey, and here I am. It's on my bad list. Every time I eat it, I'm like, this is bad food I'm eating for myself. Yeah, I'm just eating because it's sugar, and just putting pure white sugar on bread, which is not accurate, but but also that. So where did we get these lists? Yeah, where does this come from? And how often do these lists take away from our pleasure with food? This is the thing that is so often not talked about. When we talk about nutrition, we talk about how much protein does it have, we talk about how much fat it has, we talk about how many carbs it has, we talk about how many macros. Yes, the macros. What are its macros? What are the vitamins that are in it? What are the the calories that are in it? We talk about all these things, and rarely do we talk about, and how much do you like it? What's the pleasure factor of this food for you? That's a good thing. It's to not talk about the pleasure factor. To talk about it, like to measure that. Yeah, because contrasting the, going to, like I talked about earlier, where I was eating these cookies, trying to make them taste. It's like it didn't taste the way I wanted it to, so I kept eating it, trying to make them taste better. Yeah. And as opposed to having something that you just really and that legitimately was not something that I it was not a recipe I enjoyed. So it's not like keep trying to make myself enjoy it, but how many times have I had a good cookie recipe where I eat that cookie and it's like, oh, this is good, but like this side of me's going, oh, this is so good, and this side of me's going, but you shouldn't be eating this because it's too much fat and it's too much sugar and it's too many calories and it's not doing anything for you. And so there's that guilt and that I shouldn't. That's taken away from that pleasure. Is there anything wrong with eating a cookie? Nope. No. And you know what happens when I know I'm not alone. This is not a me thing. This is a us thing. When I eat that cookie like that and I don't let myself enjoy it, I'm going to end up having more of it. Or buy something. I shouldn't do this. You're trying to. I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do this. And I just end up eating more. Whereas if I stop and go, oh, it's time for a cookie, and I take my time with it and I really allow myself to take pleasure in it, it is so satisfying. You had mentioned a long time ago about that I can be satisfied by 3 M&Ms. Yeah. Which, yes, I know that sounds weird. It is. I know. And I think it's weird too. But how did I find that out? One day I went, you know what? If I take the time to really enjoy these, I wonder how many M&Ms it would take me to be satisfied. And so I opened up that bag and I took out an M&M and I noticed, they have them in fun colors. I noticed the color and I loved
to me, and they got the shell just right.
Mhm.
The crispness of the shell, it's just right. So appreciating that. And then, so I put it in my mouth instead of just chomp, 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 swallow, like, let me just be with this. And so I just felt how it felt in my mouth, and I let the shell get really thin, and then appreciated just a little click. Yeah.
Yeah, the one gets before it's
Yeah.
white, when it's
Yeah,
white.
yeah. And then I just let the chocolate melt in my mouth, and it's like, that was so good. I want another one. So I took another one.
Yeah.
And appreciated that color and did the same thing with it. And by the time I had my third one, it was like, I'm so done with these.
Mhm.
Because I had allowed myself to really just experience them. Let's go back to your meal. You mentioned when you went to France that the smell of it.
Yes.
And the fact that, I mean, who doesn't want a meal in South France? But your environment, even, you know, I was not very far from home when I had that wonderful peach cobbler. So, you know, out in the woods. But our environment that we're having it in.
Oh, yeah. It was outside.
Mhm.
It was a long table. And just sat next to people and just ate.
Yeah, and so, and the length of time that lasted, taking your time, slowing down and taking time.
That wasn't like we had one course and then we just stopped.
Next course.
Yeah, and then we stopped and waited. And I just remember thinking, I've eaten. I remember finally looking at my watch and they were like, it's midnight. And I was, we've eaten non-stop from 6 on. But yeah. But the one thing that I think also helps me is I like recipe books. I don't always cook from the recipe books, but I like recipe books, especially like I have gone to some places in San Francisco that have been really awesome and they have their own recipe books and I like to get those. And I am able to even begin to, you know,
Cook like a 5-star
cook like a 5. I'm not Thomas Keller, but I like reading about it because they talk about the ingredients usually and they talk about the reason why they're chefs and they talk about like how I do this and blah, blah, blah. And it gives you like a sense of how much respect, you know, the chefs have for the ingredients and how much respect they have for what they're doing, like their part in making the food. And so it reminds me to also, if I'm cooking, be respectful of the ingredients, be respectful of myself, you know, that helps me a lot. Just being able to read others' views on it.
Yeah, and it's it is just a whole different way of approaching it. I think I've mentioned before, and I'm sure I'll mention again, a book called The Culture Code. And in America, what the culture code is if you take a given culture's opinion or touchstone about a given thing, in this case, food. In America, the code for food is fuel. And we see that. I mean, it's so evident. When was the last time we went to a gas station that didn't have some kind of food available?
No, but lots of places have, lots of countries have food at the gas stations.
Yes.
Some of them have like real foods at the gas stations, like.
It's a different thing. Most of the foods and one of America's contributions to world cuisine is fast food.
Yeah, I believe that.
It's not, this is not food that you're meant to, like you may have heard.
Sorry,
if
France.
you've read any of our stuff. If you've read any of my stuff, you may have heard this story before. But it's such a drastic contrast. I was working with a client and talking to her about this taking pleasure with food. And about how Americans' culture code for food is fuel. And it's not about the pleasure of it, it's just about what can you do while you're on the go. It's just meant to tank up and keep going. And not too far from here is a big flea market. And if you go there, the food that's available is it's like either on a stick or it's meant to be taken with you as you walk. There are places to sit, but it's just, last time I was there, it was just picnic tables of varying degrees of cleanliness. Basically, it's like if you need to get off your feet for a couple of minutes, here you go, here's your corn dog, you know, eat it quickly and then back to shopping, or eat it while you're shopping.
A street food, basically.
And then, but this client, so we were talking about this and she was about to go to France. I said, while you're there, notice their attitude toward food. And she came back and I have to talk to her because she went back again recently. She was going to get me pictures of this. Her mom likes to go to flea markets because she gets stuff for making jewelry, and she finds a lot of good stuff at the flea markets
In France.
in France.
Yeah.
So she goes to a flea market in France. Tables have tablecloths. There's flowers in a vase on the table. They serve food that's meant to be, you sit down with food and you eat your food. It's this whole, and in Italy and in France, their cultural code for food is around gathering and around community. That's their culture. That's their code for food over there. And ours is fuel.
So my top 5 meals, 2 of them are in France, 2 of them are in Greece, and then 1 is in San Francisco.
But the meal you had in San Francisco, I bet, is at a restaurant that's that kind of caliber.
Oh yeah, it's that kind of caliber
where
for
you're
sure.
slowing
Well,
down, you're appreciating it.
no, it's actually no, it wasn't even that kind of caliber. Like the one in San Francisco is like at this kind of caliber.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But in Greece and in France, one was at somebody's house, and then the other, were just random places.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. The one in San Francisco,
is like jacked up. But the
end.
others, they eat,
and so it's
so well,
and it's there's just taking pleasure with our food is. We think sometimes if we are too much stuck in the diet mentality, the diet culture mentality, we feel like that there's something, it's kind of like almost, it's a guilty pleasure if you take pleasure with food, because it's just supposed to be your fuel. It's just supposed to serve its function, and that's what it's supposed to do. It's not about loving it. And so we can feel kind of guilty about that if we're taking too much pleasure with it. Or we think, if we just let ourselves eat all the M&Ms we wanted, that we would just be out of control with them. But that's not the case. Actually, usually the opposite ends up happening. When we slow down and let ourselves really enjoy what we're eating, we usually eat much less of it, because we're taking out the guilt, we're taking out any shame that we might feel attached to eating this food this way, and we're slowing down with it. And so we end up recognizing the satisfaction level. We recognize when our body's going, oh, that's enough of that, instead of disregarding that and eating as much as we can before the guilt or shame overcomes us, and so how do we do that? How do we take pleasure with our food?
Well, I mean, I think also like I said, you can read about people who are taking pleasure with food on a like crazy scale. Yeah. But also too, to know where I don't know what, there's a documentary, and I don't know which one, where it talks about, the people who like do our beef and our meat, and like where did our food come from, like where our meat comes from, things like that. I think when like growing up on a farm, you just went outside, and like my mom would say to me, go outside and pick a salad. And so I would just go outside and like touch the tomatoes and figure out, okay, like at this point in my life, I can just touch a tomato and go, this is perfect, or this is, and gather the food up, and then, so knowing where it came from, knowing where like we grew it, and all of that, like knowing that and respecting that is, I think, makes a big difference.
Now, again, this is one of those things.
I know all that. I know better, but I do this all the time, and like don't pay attention to where it's coming from or what's going on.
And two, really paying attention to where it's coming from and eating really good quality food, that is also a privilege.
Yes,
because
that is a privilege.
We just don't have the money to go shop at the high-end grocery store that has all the high-end stuff, and that's okay. We can still appreciate that food. We can still do the most we can with what we have. So really, to taking our senses, using as many of our senses as we can when we're eating, instead of just with the M&M, instead of just mine will say throwing them in my mouth by the mouthful instead of by the one at a time while I'm watching TV or doing something where I'm distracted. Taking the time to actually look at it and appreciate, an M&M is not a high quality ingredient food. But I can appreciate that, somebody thought this up and somebody put this together, and this bag of M&Ms represents a lot of employment for a lot of people. And even something like that. So it's not the
Not to mention the M&M people on the commercial.
They're very cute. But yeah, so just the taking the time to use our eyes, taking the time to smell. M&Ms, you can kind of smell the chocolate, but that's not as much. But whatever we're eating, like when she walked into in France, just the smell of being in there. Taking time to notice that. I've noticed since I've started doing this, like I love bakeries and I love baked goods. And before, when I was like, oh, that's bad food, I can't eat that. It would make me want it so much more. And if I ever did let myself get a cake or whatever, it was like I had to stop myself from eating the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because if I just turned myself loose, I would have just hardly ate the whole thing and been miserable afterward. But now I legitimately, like, I'd love to go to stores that have good bakeries and just walk past and go, that is a beautiful fruit tart. Yeah. That is a gorgeous cupcake. Who decorated that? Yeah. Look at this cake. It's so pretty. And I can appreciate the smell of it. And I find when I do that, most of the time I don't even want it. It's like I didn't realize before that eating it was not what I wanted. Appreciating it was what I wanted. And when I slowed down and let myself just adoringly look at a cake, instead of go, oh, look at that, oh, I shouldn't be eating it, and let the guilt and the shame kick in immediately. So now I can't even look at a cake and get any kind of satisfaction from it. When I kicked that to the curb and started just going, you know what, it is beautiful. This is beautiful. And when I started doing that, I realized I thought it would make me want it more. It made me want less. I can be so satisfied just walking into a cupcake store, a cupcake bakery, and looking at all the different kinds of flavors that they have and smelling what it smells like to be there and appreciating the creativity of the people who put it together. And if I'm not with somebody who's buying something, I will often buy something small so that I'm not just, being a weirdo, getting the small businesses hopes up and walking and going, oh, how beautiful it is. See ya, but to just go in there and smell it. So I'll buy a little thing, and or I bought an apron at this cute place once, so I can still support that small business. But it's just so satisfying to me just to look at it and smell it, and then be on my way. And so just so using our senses, every sense that we can possibly employ, the more satisfying food's going to be for us.
Well, I think too, you talked about this before, we talked about the value judgment of food, like the value scale. Like I was like, oh, well, chocolate cake is 10 of badness and kale is 10. Kale is 1, and like on the value scale of, however, whichever is good around
scale,
and the bad
kale is 1,
and
cake or whatever is 10, or on the goodness scale,
so just taking the value out of food, like there's no moral value, and
let food just be food.
Let it be.
Oh, there you go. Let it be as well.
Anyway, so
here the bottom line is that you deserve to be eating food that really brings you pleasure and satisfaction. That's not something to be fought against or be ashamed of or feel like you're a glutton if you take time to take pleasure in this. That's not what gluttony is. But that's been,
let me tell you what gluttony is. I've experienced that just yesterday. Well, I ate every biscuit that was known to mankind. My mom making Southern biscuits.
Oh,
she's a San Francisco girl, but like
honey in the house. So.
I know. Me and my that was gluttony. I didn't even like. My mom goes in the kitchen. She's like, "Where are the biscuits?" I thought the biscuits are on the table. You too. That's gluttony.
But it's satisfaction and gluttony, not the same thing. Satisfaction and pleasure, not the same thing.
It's a deadly sin.
But let's not be fooled into thinking that the purpose of food is strictly to provide energy to our bodies. That is not its only purpose.
Mhm.
And I honestly
If it was
don't
their
know.
only purpose, then it wouldn't even be good. We would have like one like thing. If the food's only purpose was just that, and
Just
we would
fuel.
have like, say, I don't know, grits. No offense to grits, that would be hell for me if I had to like. That was it. But just say, if that's all it was, we would have like a pile of grits, and that's what we have for every single meal.
Right, because that's what it's
But
done.
obviously, that is not.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have a variety of things.
And we're gonna have things that are our favorites. And one of my dear friends,
And we have
No,
grits.
she
For
is-
those that love grits.
one of her favorite things, she loves to just make a pot of beans. And I'm like, I'm so glad that lights you up so much. For me, that could possibly be nothing, could be nothing possibly,
That
but
sounds good.
oh,
Did she put bacon in them?
no,
Just beans.
she's plant-based. She eats no
Oh, okay.
animal anything. But she loves her pot of beans, and I don't hate beans, but they're very low on my favorite food list. And so that to me sounds like, let me just eat gruel the rest of my life.
She liked it.
Like that's what
I like beans. I don't know. Like medium lights me up. I don't know.
It depends. Like I love me a good refried bean, love a good black bean, but not all the time. To eat
No.
it like as my main staple of my main
No,
source of protein.
No. Although I did, I was vegan. I wasn't vegan, I was vegetarian, but then like I couldn't eat cheese or whatever. Yeah, ultimately, just with my dietary restrictions, I ended up almost being vegan. And so I would have beans and like broccoli slaw. And my boyfriend was like, what do you think? He's like, you just eat nothing but like stones and sticks. It's it, like these bean stones and the sticks of the
And if stones and sticks light you up,
yes.
yay.
Yes.
But if eating bones and sticks, do you think that's the healthiest thing and that's what you must eat it? Then
Yeah, because you have to,
no.
because that's it, because it's
Right.
dinner. Yeah.
Right. So here's your challenge for this week. Find something, anything, and just really slow down and take pleasure with it. Use as many of your senses as you can to enjoy it and see how that feels. And we would love to hear about it in the comments.
Yes. And read some essays. Read some
Yeah.
Read some like chef essays. I'm sure that there's lots of chefs out there that have written things that are fun.
Gosh. You can hardly
talk about
go on
food.
Pinterest and look up recipes. You'll get every story that you ever could possibly imagine. You cannot post just a recipe on Pinterest without the entire backstory of it.
I kind of meant real chefs, like not.
People who love to cook too.
Okay. Yeah,
Anybody who's taken the time to post a recipe and write a story about it,
You're
there are
right.
people who love to cook.
you're right. You're right.
They may be cooking with different ingredients,
Yes.
but they are people
Go
who love to cook.
read some stories.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So again, this is a way to nourish your body and your soul.
And your soul.
Until next time.
See you later, everybody. Woohoo. Okay, so this is embarrassing because I've always made fun of people who did this, but
Like and subscribe.
turns out it's important.
Well, it's important because if you like what you're listening to and seeing and you want to find it again, it makes it easier for you to find it, and then also it makes it easier for other people to find it. So if you like us, like us,
Yeah,
like and subscribe.
yeah, like put a ring on it, like
Yeah,
us.
yeah, then like and subscribe, and it'll make us easier to find. Hey, it's Tracy. If this was helpful and you'd like more, follow me on Instagram at tlastel.nourishingbodyandsoul, or on Facebook or YouTube at Nourishing Body and Soul, or you can find my website at nourishingbodysoul.com. Thanks for tuning in to Nourishing Body and Soul, the podcast. Before we wrap up, we just want to remind you that the information we share in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended for medical advice. While we hope you find our discussions helpful, we strongly recommend that you seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your diet, exercise routine, or any other aspect of your health. We also want to make it clear that the host, guests, and producers of this podcast are not responsible for any adverse effects or consequences that may result from the use of any information or suggestion discussed in this podcast. We care about your well-being, but we can't take responsibility for individual outcomes. By listening to this podcast, you agree to indemnify and hold harmless the hosts, guests, and producers of this podcast from and against any and all claims, damages, liabilities, costs, and expenses arising from your use of the information provided in this podcast. We're so grateful for your support, and we hope you keep listening and learning with us. Thanks.